I was down at my local jewellery store the other day and I saw a few cuff bracelets, so I decided that it was time that I made one. Hi, my name's Carol. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, thanks for joining me, and if you're coming back, it's always nice to see you. So what is a cuff bracelet? Generally, cuff bracelets are quite wide and they're quite stretchy. This one here that I made, it's basically, it's quite wide, as I said, and it's quite stretchy, so it fits around your arm like this. This one is made out of memory wire so that it retains its shape. Anyway, if you would like to join me on the challenge of making this, because it's not a beginner project, it is a more advanced project, please do, and let's get making. To make this bracelet, you're going to need some 6 centimetre memory wire. Now you'll probably need about 11 rounds. I can't tell you exactly because you're going to cut it larger than you normally would. You will also need 130 approximately of these 3mm gold vacuum beads and 140 of the silver 3mm matte vacuum beads. These ones are 4mm vacuum beads and they're white with an AB finish, and you'll need approximately 180 of those. You will need 18 of these hematite magnetic beads. Now these ones are 6x8 and they are faceted tubes. You will also need 45 of these 6x8 glass faceted rondelles, 66 of these 5mm beaded rondelles, and 60 of the antique gold beaded rondelles. And lastly, you'll need a piece of 20 gauge wire. This is you probably need about 10 centimetres. You're also going to need some tools. You'll need some cutters, some flush cutters. You'll also need some chain nose pliers, some round nose pliers, and of course some memory wire cutters. Okay, let's get started. Normally when you cut memory wire, you would cut it to the end of the loop. For example, if I say to you that you need 3 rounds, you will cut 3 rounds and have the cut beginning and ending in the same place. For this bracelet, we're actually going to fold that over a little bit. So the reason for that is that the braids take up quite a bit of the wire space. So we're actually going to use something like this. So we're cutting it about 3 centimetres longer than the end of the wire. So I've pre-cut mine because it takes quite a long time to cut. And I'm going to just start by putting a loop in the end of my memory wire. Now I should say that this is not a beginner project, it's actually quite a complex project, so if you're a beginner and you've never used memory wire before, I would suggest that you go back and watch maybe the Licorice All Sorts bracelet or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my loop by putting the wire into the jaws of my round nose pliers and just twisting away from me as far as my hand will go, popping that back on the lower jaw of the pliers and twisting some more. Now I'm not really looking here to worry about my loop being closed up. I'm going to take it in my chain nose pliers and just give it a bit of a squeeze, just to flatten that loop out a little bit and to make sure that it's closed. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to thread on one of our little silver beads, our silver 3mm balls. And then we're going to thread on a silver rondelle. Next we're going to put on a hematite bead. Now these beads are magnetic, so they do stick to each other and to your wire, so it makes it a little bit more challenging. And then 2 of the silver rondelles. And pushing it all the way around to the end. So we have, that. All right, next we're going to start putting on some beads. So we're putting on one of our white 6x8 rondelles, and this time we're going with the gold beaded rondelles or daisy spaces. 2 of those, another of the rondelles, 2 more of the gold daisy spaces or beaded rondelles, they're called both, and then 1 more of the beads, and then we're going to put on 2 of the silver ones. And then 1 more of the hematite. So this piece here is essentially the pattern. So I'll just hold that up for you. So now we're going to just duplicate that. Okay, I've gotten to the end and I've put on my last tube, and now I'm just going to put on 1 of my silver rondelles and 1 of my little silver beads just to finish off. Now you'll see that this actually overlaps, and that's fine, because once it's braided it won't. It will actually sit more like this. Alright, now I have allowed myself a little bit of extra here to work with, so that I might need to trim it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to trim it down to about 1 centimetre from the end of the beads. But before I do that, I'm going to double check that I have all of the beads in the correct order. So I've got my tube, my silvers, my whites, 3 in a row with the gold between, silver, silver, 3 of the whites with the gold between, and just double check that you have them all correctly placed, because once it's done, you've done the loop, it's very hard to undo. Alright, so I'm going to take my cutters here, and I'm just going to cut about 1 centimetre from the end of those beads, and I'm going to hold the end with my fingers so that it doesn't fly away. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to make a loop. I may still have a little bit too much there actually. I'm going to trim a little bit more off. Alright, and just making a small loop right at the end of my pliers here. Now the trick here is to make sure that that little 3mm bead does not go inside the loop, because that's really easy to do. And my beads, my hematite magnetic beads, are sticking together, which doesn't help. Right, so just pulling that bead back down and closing that loop up. And once again, I'm going to give it a squeeze with my chain nose pliers to flatten it out. I didn't say this, but before you do the loop, make sure that all of your beads are pushed hard up against each other so that they're not going to, you've got no space. Okay, so there's the first round, and I'm not going to make you sit through watching me do that again. So I'm going to stop the camera and I'll come back in a minute when I've got all of my 3 rounds done. Okay, so here's my 3 rounds. And as you can see, they double up where the wire meets, but that's okay. As I said, once we braid them, they will sit more like this. This bracelet is made up of 9 wraps, so we're going to do 1 for either side. Okay, we're starting again with a piece of memory wire, and I've already put the loop in the end just because you've already seen me do that. And we're going to basically make a ring of these 4mm white vacuum beads. So I'm just going to pop them on. You'll need 59 of these vacuum beads per round. So once again, just threading them on, and you're going to make 3 of them, so I'll come back when I've done all 3. Here's my 3 rounds of my 4mm beads. Now as you can see, they are still crossing over, and once we braid them they won't. So that's those ones done. Next we're going to make up the other side, and I've actually pre-made a couple of pieces here, and these are just a silver and a gold, the 3mm ones. So I've made my loop, and I'm just going to start by, actually I'm going to put a silver on first. Silver, gold, silver and gold. So you get the picture of what I'm going to do here. All right, now I've got my 3 rounds of the gold and silver beads as well. So I have all of the components I need now to make up my bracelet. So how this works is one of these white ones goes on one side and one of these gold and silver ones goes on the other. So that's basically what we're going to make up next. We're going to start that by getting our wire. I'll just pop those out of the way. We have our piece of wire here for the 20 gauge wire, and I'm just going to use my flush cutters this time to cut that in half, approximately. It's not essential that it's absolutely perfect. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to make a loop in the top of that wire. Now it needs to be quite a small loop, so I'm quite close to the end of my pliers, probably about 3 millimeters from the end. And I'm just going to twist all the way around and just put the loop on the bottom jaws and twist again just to close that loop up. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just give that a squeeze because it's sitting up a little bit, and just give it a wiggle and center it on the loop. There we go. So center it on the wire. So that's what I have. All right, now I'm going to take one 3mm silver bead and I'm going to pop that onto the wire. Next I'm going to take one of my pieces of my gold and silver loops and I'm going to put that on the wire. Then I'm going to take a 3mm gold and put that on. So this is what I have now. Then I'm going to take my main section of my bracelet and pop that on, and then another silver bead. So what you're doing is you're alternating the component and a gold and silver bead so that you have it looking like that. And lastly, the white one. Now these will all stick together and be a bit painful because of the hematite being magnetic, but that's okay. Now I've done a silver one there, so I'm doing a gold one next. And I'm just going to repeat that same pattern again. Oops, making sure you get it on the right way. Right, we put a gold on last, so now we're putting a silver one on. And next we need the main bracelet round. And another gold bead. The white one. This is the most challenging part of this bracelet, is getting it all to sit on here nicely and work properly. Definitely the second end is more challenging than the first, once we've braided it. Alright, and one more silver, and our final white one. I could have been a little bit more generous with the wire here, but that's okay. And lastly, you want to put on another bead. So let me show you. So that's what we have. Now I'm just going to make a loop in that end of the wire. Just another small loop, just like I did before. And I'm just going to give it a squeeze with my pliers just to make sure it's closed well and centered on that piece of wire. Alright, so that's what it looks like now. Going to take my other piece of wire and I'm going to make a loop in it so that I'm ready when I finish the braiding to put it on. Going to make my loop, squeeze it down shut and center it, and I'm actually going to put my silver bead on as well so that it's all ready when I finish my braiding to pop it on. Okay, so we've got here essentially three pieces. We've got, you can see there, we've got 1, 2, 3. So I've sorted it into the gold and silver, the main one, and the white, and the same for each of these. And I'm just going to take my right hand one and I'm going to cross it over the middle one, just like that. And then I'm going to take my left hand one and cross it over the middle one. And I'm going to take my right hand one, cross it over the middle one, and my left hand one and cross it over the middle one again. Now you don't want to do this too tight, so I'm going to just do one more. So right over left, right over centre, and then left over centre. And just make sure that you want to go through and make sure that the beads are lying flat. So you don't want this kind of thing to have happened. So you need to make sure that they're all lying flat. All right, now if I come around to the end, just going to turn it around, and I have just got to get it in the right order. So basically you're looking to put on the beads again on the wires in the white, the middle one, and the gold and silver, and the same white, middle, gold and silver, and so on. So I'm going to put these ones on first. I'm going to go through that white one, and then I'm going to put on a gold bead. There we go. Right, and now I'm going to put on my middle run of beads, and then a silver bead. And then I have to find my white and my gold and silver one, which goes with this lot. So making sure I'm looking where it's coming from down here, so that it's not crossed. Another gold one. Right. Now, so I'm actually looking to bring this middle one in next. So I'm going to put on that white one. Now, I'm actually using some soft wire here, and the reason I'm using soft wire is because it's easy to bend, because it's quite hard to get this around all the curves. Normally I would use a half hard wire, but this one is soft. You can use half hard if that's what you've got, it doesn't matter. Okay, so silver, the main section, and a gold one, and then the silver and gold on there. So that's what it's looking like. And then we've got one more set, so I'm going to put on a silver bead, the white one, the gold bead, oops, and the center. It's good to push it up from the loop at the other side just to make sure that it's not going to fall out. And one more silver bead. Oops, doesn't want to go on that one. And finally the gold and silver. And lastly, one more gold bead. Okay, so that's what it looks like now. And at this point, before you put the loop in, just go round and make sure that everything is sitting right, it's not twisted. Looks good to me. And I'm going to take my flush cutters and I'm going to cut that wire to about 1 centimetre. And I'm just going to take my round nose pliers and make a loop in that end, just like I did before. And just give it a squeeze in. And I'm just going to manipulate the wire to make sure that those loops are both sitting flat, because you don't want them to dig into your skin. And they will if they're not both sitting flat. And because this is soft wire, I can actually just wiggle that round with my fingers. And I'm just going to, as a last step, just going to straighten this out because it's gotten a bit wiggly while we've been working with it. Okay. There it is, braided memory wire bracelet. And you can see here, I wasn't lying, it did take up the extra slack when we braided it, so it's no longer crossing over. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making it. It was a bit of a challenge, which is always good. It makes the brain cells work a little bit harder. If you've enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so that you'll be notified every time I upload a new project, so you'll see what's coming. And I'd just like to say thank you for watching and have a great day.